Welcome to CumuLogic videos. In this video, we will demonstrate how to deliver CumuLogic Cloud Services through Citrix CloudPortal Business Manager. CloudPortal Business Manager (CPBM) is a cloud services delivery platform for self-service IT. Infrastructure, cloud, and other IT services can all be delivered to the end users and developers from a simple self-service catalog. CPBM unifies the commerce, the user management, provisioning, and operational aspects of the cloud services into a single unified business platform. Now, CumuLogic is a platform for cloud services. So CumuLogic has the suite of different services, including platform as a service, which developers can use to deploy applications on the cloud and leave the operational aspect to the platform to be managed by the platform. CumuLogic also provides a relational database as a service, which is aka MySQL-as-a-Service. Uh, NoSQL database as a service, which is MongoDB-as-a-Service. Distributed cache cluster as a service, which is called as Elastic Cache, and Elastic Load Balancer. So CumuLogic has these different modular services which developers want to provision different services, different size of services, etc., and orchestrate them so that they can deploy these complex applications on the cloud. Now, one of the challenge for cloud providers or even the enterprise IT would be how do you actually deliver these services through a single unified console or a portal and be able to manage the subscriptions and the billing and metering aspects of all these cloud services. So this is where the CumuLogic connector for CPBM comes handy. Now let's take a look at CPBM and see how CPBM can actually be used to deliver all these cloud services through a single unified console. Now what you see on the screen is my dashboard. As a user, what I see is I have a platform with which CumuLogic provides this connector and the services. Now, all the CumuLogic services would be available in the catalog, which are pre-created either by the cloud vendor or enterprise IT who manage the CPBM platform and CumuLogic platform. So I have a collection of services, which is, as we mentioned, database as a service, which is a relational database as a service. We have a NoSQL service, which is actually delivering MongoDB as a service, right? And then we have caching, load balancer service, framework services, etc., etc. Now I can take a look at details of the services now, or I can simply provision these services. So let's take an example. If we want to just launch a NoSQL service, which is let's launch a MongoDB replica set. So I would go to configure and subscribe. And as you can see, MongoDB is selected because MongoDB is the only engine supported under this NoSQL service. What it gives me is the choice of number of nodes that I would want to provision. So these are number of nodes in a MongoDB replica set. So I could launch a 3-node replica set, and I can choose the size of the instances. These are small, medium, large, depending on the size of the instances that or flavors that are available in the infrastructure as a service cloud. So let's say I'm going to choose a small instance size. So I will have 3 small instances for MongoDB. And I will fill in the other information, say what am I called? I just need to provide a name to this service. So let's call this as CPBM demo. I'm just going to give some random name. And collection name, this is actually equivalent to schema. If you're familiar with NoSQL database, MongoDB refers to as a collection. This is so I'm going to call this as I'm going to create a collection called demo, and this is the default port number which the database is going to run. So you would know which port you can configure your applications to use to connect to MongoDB. And volume size is really the storage size. So let's say, for example, I'm going to choose 10 gigabytes. So these are the variables that I provided, and this I size my database, and then I accept the terms and conditions explicitly for this service. And here exactly it shows me the total of running this particular service. So based on the cost of a different service, the total cost of a service might vary on different clouds as well. So I'm going to subscribe and provision. I can subscribe to it and provision it later. But for demo, let's go ahead and say go and provision these resources as well. So I could go back to dashboard, or I can go and take a look at my resources that we just provisioned, the MongoDB database. So let's go and check out the instances that are getting provisioned here. So this would be an instance of this is an instance of CPBM demo MongoDB cluster that we just subscribe to, and here you can see there are 3 instances of MongoDB virtual machines being provisioned. So it takes a couple of minutes depending on how quickly we can spin up the virtual machines on the CloudStack cloud or any other target cloud. So once these are provisioned and configured, the service will be ready to use. As you can see here as an example, which was already provisioned service, we have monitoring data. So the service has the capability to recover from failures, and it also shows all the important metrics for MongoDB, so that the user can actually optimize and understand the performance and utilization of their database services. So going back to my services, so let's go back to the dashboard here. So if you can see, CumuLogic Cloud Services is the one that I have. These are my services. Let's go back to the dashboard, and as you can see here, the number of subscriptions is 4, and it is tracking my spend, which is an additional spend from MongoDB as a service. So I can go back to the catalog. For example, let's try and launch one more service. Let's pick another service. Say we're going to use a framework service, and I want to deploy, say, for example, I want to deploy any of these frameworks that you see here, which is I can choose a JBoss 7, 6, Glassfish, Tomcat. I can provision a PHP container so that I can deploy PHP, Grails, Python, any of these frameworks. So let's say, for example, I want to launch Java EE container, which will be my Tomcat. It's going to cost me $10 a month. And similarly, just like we configured my MongoDB service, we can configure the framework service. Let's say my application requires only a single instance of the container. We're going to choose a very small, tiny container, and we're going to name this. Let's call this as a CPBM demo framework. And if you want to describe, this is optional description of your framework. And really what it shows you is the cost of running this on a monthly basis, or your provider might have configured the service to be available on utility pricing basis, depending on who the provider is. The total and the tax would be different cost. Now let's go ahead and subscribe. If we go back to the dashboard, now you can see the number of subscriptions is 5, and it adds the cost of running that particular framework as well. Now if I want to go and manage my services, I could go choose manage services, manage CumuLogic Cloud Services. So what this does is it gives me that same CumuLogic console, so that I can operate on my services. So as you can see here, CPBM demo is the Java EE Tomcat container that we just provisioned, and it is spinning up that particular instance. And when it is readily available, I'll be able to deploy applications and use the container the way I intended to use. Again, let's take a look at this pre-provisioned container. Again, there is monitoring information available. You have capabilities to deploy your application on this container, configure the properties, configure auto scaling of the container, etc. So based on the service that you provision through CPBM, you will have different control functions for your particular services. So going back to the dashboard, uh, let's take a look at usage and billing. So if you look at the usage here, this is my current activity. So as we see, the more services I use, the more charges it shows me here on a monthly basis, because those services are configured to be charged on monthly basis. And these are my subscriptions. So we just signed up for Java EE container. We just launched a NoSQL container, and these are my previous services that we launched before the demo. So these services, I could terminate these services. If I'm not going to use, I could go ahead and say terminate my NoSQL service, or I could go back and terminate my SQL service here. So that way I have control for starting and stopping my services, etc. It will also has capabilities for invoicing based on the usage of individual services. So you can see the breakdown of your services on monthly basis as well. So again, going back to the catalog, and catalog is the most important aspect, right? So as you saw, there are several services all provided by CumuLogic on the back end, which is running on a cloud stack cloud, and all you need to do is simply choose the configurations, the sizes of the instances, etc., and launch those services and manage those services through My Services tab. So that concludes our demo from the end user point of view, how a user can actually launch all the services through a single interface. So with that, there is more information available on cumulogic.com/cpbm, and please take a look at the documentation collateral. You can actually download the CPBM connector for CumuLogic and try it out in your data center, in your cloud stack environment. Thank you so much again for your time today. We appreciate it, and hope we will hear from you soon.